Well, hello everyone again. Today's is second part of the video of the Python course. We're gonna have a lot of different parts covering different topics. In this case, we're going to review the if-else statement and or logical statements, so we can kind of start building more complex instructions, and we can get a glimpse about how programming works. So basically, when we work with logical statement, we have this basic structure when we set like an initial condition and we check for that condition being true or false. So in Python, the way we do this is we define this if statement, which basically check for the condition being true. If that condition is true, then I'm going to ignore everything that is after this if statement, and I'm just going to execute which is nest here. Okay, so if this is true, then I'm going to execute whatever code we have here. In case this is not true, I'm just going to ignore this. I'm just going to skip it, and I'm going to go to this Elif, which stands for else if. So here, probably I could have a different condition. So, or multiple conditions. So I could say, okay, if the previous is false, that means I'm skipping this if statement, but this is true. That means what I'm declaring here, that means that I'm going to execute this and I'm going to ignore everything that is after. I can have multiple elif statements. So I can first check for my first condition, and then I can check for 10 different conditions. And then if either the if statement and the elif statement were never true, that means that I skip all of them because none of them were like true. That means I'm going to reach this part of the code. So the else is going to be our closing structure. So every time we reach here, that means that if anything were true, that means I'm going to execute this anyway. It doesn't matter. If I reach here, that means that I'm going to execute this piece of code. So we need our building blocks for the logical statements are going to be our operators and our conjunctions. So like we mentioned before in our first video, we're gonna have these logical operators that are equal to, different to, smaller or equal than, greater or equal than, and the same for smaller and greater. So I know this is kind of basic, but the combination of the multiple operators, right, it's going to be really useful when building like this, like complicated structures by combining them. And then a lot of times I'm gonna need to separate or to create logical statements when I need to check for multiple conditions to be met in different ways. So, for example, if I want to create a statement to go to a party with some friends, I can check if all my friends are gonna go, and also if I can check if I have enough money to go, and also if I have, I don't know, probably someone taking me there because I don't have I don't have a car to get there, so I need someone to get me there. And I check for that three conditions to be for those three conditions to be true. That's an example. And if one of them is not true, then I cannot go, because if my friends are going but I don't have money, probably I will not be able to go. Or probably my friends are going and I have money but I don't have how to get there. And sometimes I'm just going to be checking for one condition or the other condition being true. For example, I could say, okay, if my friend Daniel is going or my friend Jeff is going, then I will go anyways because I will have someone to come with me. So by combining these operations and these conjunctions, we can do a lot of complicated stuff, like I mentioned before. So first I check if this condition, for example, are true, then I can check within that condition if other conditions are met, and so on and so forth. So I can create like really complicated logical structures that will allow me to make, let's say, intelligent decisions in the future. So we're going to see this in the code right now. Okay, so now we're here in the code, and we're going to create different logical statements, or we're going to play with the concept we just reviewed. So first, if we say, for example, if A and B are true, then we're going to print something like this. A or B are both true, right? What happens if both are not true? Then I'm going to check if A and C are true. So in that case, you're going to print this statement, A and C are both true. And in case this is not going to happen, then I'm going to print this other statement, which A and B are both false. Okay? So if I run this code, you're going to see it. You're going to see it here. Then I'm going to find the following. Okay, A and C are both true. So what happened? First, we came to this part of the code, and we check if this is met. So we check if A is true. So we go to the variable A, we'll say, okay, this is true. And then we check if B is also true. That's the reason we use the AND conjunction. So we need the both being true at the same time. And this is not met because we declare B to be false. So we're going to skip this. So this is not going to be executed. And if you look at here, we don't have anything else but this statement here. So then we arrive here, and what we got is that because A and C are both true, then I execute this part of the code. So I print this, but I'm going to ignore the else statement. So either this part or this part of the code is executed. Okay? And I can do something else. I can say, okay, I can create a different statement within my statement. So I can say, okay, if A bigger than B, then I'm going to print A is bigger than B. But in case not, in case A is equal to B, then I'm going to print A is equal to B. And the last case is going to be, okay, if either A is greater than B nor A is equal to B, then my last case is going to be, okay, print A is smaller than B, because it's the default option if they are not equal and if A is not greater than B. So now if I run this, let's save this. If I run this, then if you look, I'm going to reach the same part of the code because A and C still being true. Then I'm going to go inside of this statement here, this structure. So I'm going to check. Is this true? And we know this is not, because we know that A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 2. So we know that 1 is not greater than 2. But at the same time, we know that they are not equal. So now we are going to skip the elif, and we're going to reach this else. So the default option here is going to be A is smaller than B. But now, what happens if I create another elif statement? So now I'm going to check, okay, what happened is C is greater than B, which we know is true by fact because we know that 3 is greater than 2. What is going to happen to this statement here? This is true. A is smaller than B. So what are we going to have? So if you look, we're going to have C is bigger than C, which we know because we know that 3 is bigger than 2. But even though A is smaller than B, this is true because I'm setting this structure. Every time I have an elif statement that is true, then I'm going to ignore both the first part. This is not going to be executed. At the same time, I'm going to ignore the else statement. So if I want this statement to be true, then I have to create a different condition outside of my initial condition. So I should do something like this. I should delete this, and I can create a different statement. I can say, okay, if A is smaller than B, then print this. And this is going to be in a different structure, because here we're going to have, okay, if A is greater than B, then do this. Else if, else if. And this is going to be one structure. But because we are using the if statement again in the same, and this is super important, in the same indentation level, that means that if you look at this line, they're going to be at the same level, then I can execute these two conditions at the same time. So if I run the code now, there you have. So I have that A and C are both true, what we know is true. Then we have C is bigger than B, which is what we have here in this else statement. But now we get out of this structure and we go here and we check for this condition. And because we know that condition is true, then we just print the second statement. So now we are printing the three statements. And we can do this forever. I mean, we can take any condition and we can go inside of the condition. So we can check, for example, if, I don't know, probably W equal to W2, then W is equal to W2, W1 is equal to W2. So what is going to happen? We have that W1 is equal to hello and W2 is equal to hello too. So we're going to check if this is true. But what happened? Why is this not printing? This is super important for you to know at the beginning when you're learning Python, and it's that Python is a case-sensitive language. That means that it's going to matter if you use an uppercase or a lowercase letter. There are going to be different letters for Python, and because of that, these are going to be different words. So something that you will learn after, but I'm going to show you right now, is that because this is a object-oriented programming language, we can use a lot of methods in everything we have. So in Python, everything is going to be an object. So this is an object, this is an object, everything is an object. So I can treat objects, because objects are going to have different features, and at the same time, they're going to have different methods that I can apply to them. You can think about this like, for example, if you have a pencil, that pencil is going to have a length, it's going to have a weight, but at the same time are going to have different functions. You can write with that pencil, and I don't know, probably you can use that pencil to reach something that is far, whatever. So in this case, when we are working with strings that we reviewed in the last class, the strings are going to have multiple different functions because we can use them for a lot of different things. So what happens if, for example, I use this method? So I say, and this is the way we call methods to be applied to the object. So we say, okay, apply lower. So now we're going to check if this is going to be equal. And there you are. Now we're printing that W1 is equal to W2. And this is because the lower method, what it does is that it takes every letter of the word and then it turns it into a lowercase. So because all of these are lowercase, and this is the only different one, once we change this to lowercase, these words are going to be equal. So in the same way, we can do this to be upper. So every letter is going to be uppercase right now. But what happened? Because this is all lowercase, we're going to run into the same problem. So we will have to change both of them, and then we're still having the same ones. So if we print them, so we say, okay, show me which is W1, and you're going to, for example, we can say this is W1, and we can do the same thing for W2. You can see it yourself. Okay, so if we run it, this is W1, this is W2. Oh, sorry, my bad. So this is going to be upper, and this is going to be upper too. Okay, this is super important. You realize that I run the code, but what was printed is the original words that we have. This is because when you use the methods in this way, just like you apply this method upper to the word directly, that is not going to change the word. It's not going to affect the box that we have where we have our variable stored. What it's going to do is just going to change it for the moment we're using. So at least we redefine our variable, we are not going to change it. So that's the reason this that everything was printed in this way. So now if I run again the code, there you are. So now both are in uppercase. Okay, so this is the way you work with logical statement. You can create different like nested logical structures. The way you separate them, the way you can execute multiple at the same times, is that by creating different if statement at the same indentation level. And this is going to give you an idea of the way that Python, let's say, look at your code. So you have to be really clear at how this works, because everything we are going to be doing in the next classes is going to depend a lot on this structure. So we're going to define different conditions. We're going to execute different pieces of code depending on what is happening to different variables and whatever. So this is super important for you to understand. First, the way if, elif, and else work, and how you can nest this condition to create more complicated conditions. Okay, so that's everything for today. So I hope to see you the next time, and I hope you're enjoying this series. Every advice, everything you can give me to do this series better, I will be super grateful. So you can comment, you can do some comments on YouTube. YouTube's really like that, so I will be pretty grateful if you do that. And of course, if you like it, you can just put your thumb up in the application, and I will be really happy. So see you the next time.